What is the difference between painting from life and painting from photos? Have you ever wondered? I wonder all the time. I think about it all the time. Obviously, there are a lot of people who work from photos only. There's a lot of artists who work from life only. And there's also artists who do a little bit of both. I'm not sure if you sensed this, but I feel like we artists judge and criticize each other for preferring one way of working over the other. And if you're sitting on the other side right now and thinking, oh, I don't judge, I don't criticize, then you are a better person than I am, because I do it all the time. Okay. I do judge and I do criticize inside. I don't say things out loud because, and I admit it. Okay. So I really want to take a deep dive into this question and see what is the big deal. Does it really matter?
Given where we're heading.
I don't know. I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm splitting it into multiple parts. So this is part 1 of many, and I'm not sure how many parts there are going to be. I think at least 4. Keep an eye on the other parts. So I consider this part as like an introduction to what I'm trying to do, why I'm trying to do it, and how I'm going to do it. Okay. I thought the best way to approach this would be to paint the same thing twice, once from life and once from the photo. And that's because I want the 2 images at the end to be consistent in terms of the composition, the subject matter, the lighting, and overall conditions. And the reason that's important to me is because at the end, I don't want to be distracted by things that are irrelevant. The alternative would be for me to just choose 2 paintings from my portfolio, one painting done from a photo, one painting done from life, and then compare the 2 and kind of try to draw conclusions based on that. But I can't do that. The reasons are as follows. Most of my paintings are done from life. I belong to the group of artists who paint mostly from life. It would be hard for me to select a painting done from photos. I can't think of a good example to choose for this. Another reason is that even if I had the 2 paintings available to me right now, again, because of the fact that they were done in totally different conditions, lighting situations, subject matter was very different, and I have different goals for each painting. So I feel like that wouldn't be an apple-to-apple comparison, and again, I would be distracted by things that are irrelevant and maybe even come to the wrong conclusions. Okay, so I really wanted to avoid that, and so I decided that the analysis should be based on images that are consistent. I didn't want to do this with something very intricate, because knowing myself, I know I would get lost in the detail and I would never finish this project. And so it was important for me to set something up that's really simple. I chose Fred's head. One of the reasons is because I think we look alike. It's almost Halloween, so I felt like choosing this is really appropriate. So here's my setup. So as you can see, the setup is really simple. If you've seen my videos, you know that I have a strong preference for painting from daylight, and so this setup reflects my preference. Duh. So I really did not want any artificial lighting. That's why the subject matter is positioned on my window. But I did want to add a little bit of color because, Fred is really pale. So I really wanted to add some color. So I decided to put a filter on the window, and that gives it this really nice effect because the light goes through the filter and it hits Fred's head, and there are really cool reflections and hints of color on every side of the skull. Another thing that I needed to decide on was whether I want to do the painting from life first or the painting from photo first. And I concluded that it would be best that I do the painting from photo first. And the reason is because I wanted to avoid being influenced by any type of information gathered and stored in my head. If I had painted the thing from life first. If you stare at something for a long time, I don't know about you, but I tend to remember the details. So I really wanted to avoid remembering something that is not reflected on the photo and without realizing putting the information onto the painting done from the photo. I am going into this knowing that the camera does leave out a lot of information from the photo when the photo is taken. This brings me to another point, because one of the questions that I'm going to add to my list is what type of information that could be important to the painter is left out of the photo when the photo is taken by the camera. I'm really looking forward to kind of analyzing the two images at the end so I can compare and contrast and see what type of information each image contains or lacks. The thing that I see with my own eyes is my base. That's at the end of the day what I will be comparing the two images to. So because of that, starting with the picture made the most sense to me. Okay, so I think it's time to pick the photo. So let's do that.
I took 3 pictures with 3 different cameras. That's because the first photo was so different from the real thing that I had to try other cameras. So I used my old Nikon camera, my relatively new Pen F, and the camera on my phone. All 3 photos were very different when compared to each other and the real thing. And when I say the real thing, I mean the actual still life that I've set up, the actual thing. So this wasn't surprising to me. I knew the photos would be very different. I wanted to choose the photo that seemed the closest to the real thing. Initially, I thought I'd pick the photo taken with my phone because that seemed the closest, but there was this red bias that I could not get rid of through editing, so I decided not to pick that one. What you see here is basically me trying to play around and edit the color balance and exposure, so the end result is as close to the real thing as possible, but no matter what I did, I wasn't able to make these photos look better. And this may be due to my lack of experience with editing pictures in Photoshop, of course, or actually in this case, After Effects, because that's the software that I use for all of my editing. But honestly, I don't think it's possible to edit these photos in such a way that they represent the reality more accurately. If you know how to do that, let me know. But from what I can tell, it doesn't seem like that's possible. In any case, as you can see, the Pen F photo seems much cooler. There is this blue bias on the skull, and I really don't like that. I think the camera tried to compensate for the warm background. I don't know, that's my theory. I could be wrong. I tried to remove the blue tint, but I was getting weird results. The picture taken with my phone, on the other hand, had a warm tint, as I mentioned. I didn't like that either. So, long story short, I picked the picture taken with my Nikon camera because that's the picture that doesn't seem to have any particular color bias. So I decided to choose that one, even though there are significant color distortions when compared to the real thing. But again, that's true for all the photos. When I view the pictures as black and white, the values on each picture doesn't seem close to the other 2 pictures, even if I edit them. So the distortion not only applies to the colors, but also to the values. So I just wanted to show you my thought process around choosing the photo for this. And at the end, I concluded that it may not even matter which picture I choose here because all 3 represent the information very differently when compared to the real thing. So the deciding factor here for me was basically which picture would be easier for me to work from. And because the Pen F and the picture taken with my phone had a color bias that I couldn't remove, I decided to go with Nikon, as mentioned. So the Nikon picture is the winner here, just because there's no particular color bias. So that's the picture I am going with. So in my next video, I'll proceed to painting this from the picture taken with my Nikon camera, and I hope you stick around for that part as well.